I never thought I'd fall for someone while hooked up to an IV drip, wearing a hospital gown that barely covered my ass. But there I was at 3 in the morning, pretending to be asleep while my heart monitor betrayed every accelerated beat the moment Darius walked through my door. It started with appendicitis, sharp, stabbing pain that sent me to the emergency room on a Tuesday night, and by Wednesday morning I was post-op, groggy, and being wheeled into a recovery room on the 4th floor. The day shift nurse was efficient, professional, barely looked at me twice while checking my vitals. I appreciated that. I wasn't exactly at my most attractive, pale, and nauseous from the anesthesia. But then the shifts changed at 7. Darius introduced himself while I was half asleep, his voice this warm, deep thing that pulled me out of my medication haze. When I opened my eyes, he was standing beside my bed with a gentle smile, dark eyes that seemed to actually see me, not just another patient in another bed. He had these incredible hands. I noticed that right away, careful and steady as he adjusted my IV line. "I'm Darius. I'll be taking care of you tonight," he said. "How's your pain level, 1 to 10? "Maybe a 6, I managed, my voice rough. "We can fix that," he said, and something about the way he said it, like a promise, made me believe him. That first night, I figured he was just thorough. He came in every hour checking my incision, my vitals, asking about my pain. Each time he seemed to linger a little longer than necessary, asking me questions. Where did I work? What brought me to the city? Did I have family nearby? I told him I was a graphic designer, that I'd moved here 3 years ago for work, that my family was back in Ohio, and no, I didn't have anyone who could stay with me, which is why I was probably being extra pathetic about the whole hospital thing. "You're not being pathetic," he said, adjusting my blanket, even though I hadn't complained about being cold. "Surgery is scary. Being alone makes it scarier." The second night, I started paying attention. I'd been awake around midnight, scrolling through my phone because the pain made it hard to sleep when I heard him at the nurse's station. Another nurse, an older woman named Patricia, was talking to him. "You've been in to check on 412 3 times already," she said. "His chart says every 4 hours for vitals." "I know," Darius replied. "I just want to make sure he's comfortable. Post-op patients can go downhill fast." "Uh-huh," Patricia said, and I could hear the knowing smile in her voice. "That's what we're calling it?" I heard Darius laugh softly, a little embarrassed, and my stomach did this flip that had nothing to do with surgery. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling, processing. He was checking on me more than he needed to. Way more. The question was why. Maybe I was reading into it. Maybe he was just really dedicated to his job. But then he came in at 1 a.m., moving quietly like he thought I might be asleep, and when he saw my eyes open, his whole face brightened. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Pain's not too bad. I'm just restless," I admitted. "Want some company for a few minutes? It's slow tonight." He pulled up the chair beside my bed and we talked. Really talked. He told me about nursing school, about how he'd wanted to be a surgeon, but realized he preferred the patient care side of medicine. I told him about a freelance project I was stressed about missing deadlines for, and he listened like it actually mattered. At one point, he reached over to adjust my pillow, and his hand brushed my shoulder, and the touch lingered half a second longer than it needed to. "You should try to rest," he finally said, standing up reluctantly. "But I'll be back to check on you soon." "Every hour?" I asked, and immediately regretted it because it sounded like I'd been paying attention, which I had been. He paused in the doorway, silhouetted by the hallway light, and I saw him smile. "Every hour," he confirmed. By the third night, I was actively staying awake waiting for him. The pain was manageable now. I was healing well, and the doctor said I'd probably be discharged in the morning, which meant this was my last night with Darius coming through my door every 60 minutes like clockwork, and I hadn't figured out what to do about the fact that I was absolutely, undeniably attracted to my nurse. This was complicated for so many reasons. He was working, I was his patient, there were probably rules about this kind of thing, but also the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, the way he found excuses to touch my hand or adjust my blanket, the way he'd started bringing me extra pudding cups from the break room, because I'd mentioned once that the vanilla ones were better than the chocolate. At 2 a.m., he came in and found me sitting up, wide awake. "Trouble sleeping again?" he asked. "I'm getting discharged tomorrow," I said. I know. That's good news. You're healing really well. Yeah, I picked at the edge of my blanket. I'm going to miss the excellent nursing care. He sat down in his usual chair, closer to the bed than he strictly needed to be. Just the nursing care? My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure it was showing on the monitor. Darius, can I ask you something? Anything. Why have you been checking on me every hour when my chart says every 4? He was quiet for a moment, and in the dim light of the room I could see him considering his answer carefully. You really want to know? Yeah, I really do. Because every time I walk past your room, I find an excuse to look in, he said quietly. And every time I look in, I want to come in, and I know I shouldn't. I know there are boundaries and professional standards, but you're the first patient in 3 years who's made me want to break them. I couldn't breathe. I thought maybe I was imagining it. You weren't. He leaned forward, with elbows on his knees. Look, I'm not supposed to do this. I could probably get in trouble for even having this conversation. But you're being discharged in a few hours, and I couldn't let you walk out of here without knowing that these last 3 nights have been the best shifts I've worked in months. Because of me? Because of you, Marcus. Hearing him say my name like that, soft and certain, broke something open in my chest. I don't want to get you in trouble. I'm off shift at 7, he said. You'll probably be discharged around 9 after the morning rounds. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here, on the corner of 5th and Madison. It has terrible coffee, but good pastries. Are you asking me out? I'm telling you where I'll be at 9:30 tomorrow morning, he said carefully. What you do with that information is up to you. He stood up then, professional again, checking my vitals with those steady hands. But when he was done, he let his hand rest on mine for just a moment. Get some sleep, Marcus. You need rest to heal. Will you come back before your shift ends? Every hour, he promised. I've got 4 more rounds to make. He did come back every hour, though we didn't talk about the coffee shop again. We just talked about everything and nothing, and each visit felt like a secret we were keeping from the sleeping hospital around us. At 6 a.m., during what would be his last check before the day shift arrived, he brought me coffee from the nurse's station. This is definitely against protocol, he said, handing me the cup. Patients aren't supposed to have coffee before discharge. I won't tell if you won't. We sat in comfortable silence while I drank it, terrible hospital coffee that tasted perfect because he'd brought it to me. The sky outside my window was starting to lighten, soft gray dawn replacing the darkness. I'm nervous, I admitted, about the coffee shop. Me too. What if it's weird outside of this context? Then it's weird, he said simply. But I'd rather know than spend the rest of my life wondering what if. The day shift nurse came in at 7:15, a cheerful woman who immediately started talking about discharge procedures and wound care instructions. Darius stood to leave, back in professional mode, but he caught my eye one last time. Take care of yourself, Marcus. See you around, I said, and he smiled like he knew exactly what I meant. The hours between his departure and my discharge were the longest of my life. The doctors came, checked my incision, declared me healed enough to go home. I got dressed in the clothes my neighbor had dropped off, moving carefully, my abdomen still sore. I signed papers, received prescriptions, listened to instructions about rest and recovery. And the whole time, my mind was 2 blocks away, at a coffee shop on the corner of 5th and Madison. It was 9:40 when I walked through the door. I was late, moving slow because of the surgery, and for a terrible moment I thought maybe he'd given up. Maybe he'd decided this was a bad idea. But then I saw him, sitting at a corner table, still in his scrubs, 2 cups of coffee already ordered and waiting. He stood when he saw me, and the smile on his face was worth every painful step it took to get there. You came, he said. Every hour, I replied, and he laughed, that same soft laugh I'd heard outside my hospital room. We sat down, and it wasn't weird. It was easy, natural, like we'd been doing this for years instead of days. He asked about my pain level, force of habit, and I teased him about not being able to turn off nurse mode. He told me about the rest of his shift, about Patricia giving him knowing looks all morning. I told him about my neighbor's reaction when I asked her to bring me real clothes instead of just sweats. So what happens now? I asked eventually. Well, you recover, Follow your post-op instructions, take your antibiotics, don't lift anything heavy for 6 weeks. Darius. I know what you're asking. He wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. I want to see you again, like this, not as your nurse. I want that too. But you need to focus on healing first, and I need to make sure I'm not taking advantage of a vulnerable situation. I'm not that vulnerable, I protested. You're on pain medication and you just had surgery. Give it 2 weeks. Heal. And if you still want to grab coffee with me after you're back to normal, we'll figure it out from there. It was the responsible thing, the right thing, and I appreciated him for saying it, even though part of me wanted to argue. 2 weeks. 2 weeks, he confirmed. And Marcus, I'm going to think about you every single one of those days. We finished our coffee slowly, not wanting the morning to end. He walked me to the curb and helped me into the taxi, careful of my incision, and I watched him through the rear window until we turned the corner. Those 2 weeks were the longest and shortest of my life. I healed, slowly but steadily. Darius texted me every day, just checking in at first, making sure I was following doctor's orders. But the texts got longer, more personal. We talked about everything, our families, our dreams, the things that scared us. He sent me pictures of terrible hospital cafeteria food. I sent him designs I was working on. And every day, I felt myself falling a little bit more. When the 2 weeks were finally up, we met at a different coffee shop, one with actually good coffee this time. I was healed enough to move normally, off the pain medication, back to myself. And when I saw him waiting for me, in jeans and a sweater instead of scrubs, my heart did that same accelerated thing it had done every time he walked into my hospital room. Hi, I said. Hi yourself. How are you feeling? Much better. Clean bill of health as of yesterday. Good, he smiled. Then I can do this without feeling guilty. He reached across the table and took my hand, threading his fingers through mine, and it felt like coming home. That was 8 months ago. We're taking it slow, learning each other outside of hospital walls and hourly check-ins. But sometimes, late at night when we're lying in bed together, he'll set an alarm on his phone. What's that for? I asked the first time. Just checking on you, he said, pulling me closer. Every hour, remember? I remember. I remember all of it. The pain, the fear, the unexpected gift of finding someone who saw me at my most vulnerable and stayed, who broke protocol and risked his professional reputation, because sometimes the heart knows things the chart doesn't show. My scar is healing nicely, barely visible now. But I hope I never forget what it taught me, that sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments, that love can bloom in fluorescent-lit hospital rooms, and that the right person will check on you every hour, even when they're only required to come every 4.